Chair lays out Senate Bill 2207. Chair recognizes Representative Pearson to explain the bill.
Thank you, Chairman. I have the pleasure of laying out Senate Bill 2207 for Senator Bob Hall. Right now, Texas doctors who've completed years of accredited training and rigorous board exams are being told they can't advertise as board certified unless they pay into an ongoing, expensive recertification program. Not because they've failed or fallen behind, but because a private nonprofit decided to change the rules and profit from it. The Texas Medical Board rules prevent physicians from identifying as board certified unless they participate in a costly, ongoing recertification program controlled by this organization. The program has no proven benefit to patients and imposes significant financial and administrative burdens on doctors, pushing many out of practice and even out of Texas entirely. These mandates are unproven, unaffordable, and unfair. SB 2207 restores fairness. It says that if a physician was initially certified by a recognized board and continues to meet those high standards, they have a right to tell their patients that, nothing more, nothing less. This bill ensures transparency, preserves clinical quality, and cuts government overreach while keeping physicians where we need them the most, in practice, in Texas, serving our communities. I respectfully ask for your support for SB 2207. I'm happy to answer any questions and reserve my right to close.
Okay, thank you, Representative Pearson. Members, any questions of Representative at this time? Seeing none, we'll reserve your right to close, and we will move to public testimony. Chair calls Kimberly Brown, Dr. Kimberly Brown, Dr. Charles Brown.
Neither are available. They're here this morning and earlier this evening. They had to go home.
Okay. So we will show Dr. Charles Brown registered against the bill, not testifying, and Dr. Kimberly Brown registered against the bill, not testifying.
Leave me hanging.
Chair calls Dr. Zeke Silva, Dr. James McMichael,
Then we have 3 left, right?
Karen
We didn't do
Schotten, and Charlie Sheffield. Okay. Dr. Zeke Silva, you are representing Texas Medical Association and yourself. You are testifying against Senate Bill 2207, is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Yeah, Zeke Silva, I'm an interventional radiologist, also chair of the TMA's Council on Legislation. I practice in San Antonio. And we are speaking in respectful opposition to Senate Bill 2207. And to understand why is to understand that the TMB rule has been in effect for around 24 years. If you go back to 2001 when the rule was created, there was a circumstance where physicians would advertise as being board certified, and we believe that that has meaning. And we think at that time there was the perception that there weren't standards for board certification and that patients may be confused. The rule that was drafted involved TMA. It was consistent with TMA policy. It involved multiple specialties. And we think that the requirements that the TMB is imposing are quite reasonable. There's sort of 2 large sort of credentialing organizations that most physicians are board certified under: the American Board of Medical Specialties and then the American Osteopathic Board of Osteopathic Specialties. And there also is the ability through the TMB to gain certification for a group that's not within those 2 or an oral and maxillofacial surgeon. And we think those standards are quite robust and quite reasonable, and there's 12 different boards that have achieved that in our state. And I'll just close by saying, we think board certification matters to patients. We think it builds confidence in their ability to see their physician. We think it should be reasonable and meaningful, and we think that the standards as they exist are fine. And for that reason, we're opposed to this bill because we speak in favor of the existing TMB rules, again, for patient safety and patient awareness. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Chair recognizes Dr. James McMichael testifying on behalf of self and against Senate Bill 2207. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. I'm Dr. James McMichael from here in Austin. I'm a physician retired from the practice of anesthesiology in 2018. I was certified by the American Board of Anesthesiology in 1977, and I voluntarily recertified twice. I've served as the Chief of Staff at Seton Medical Center, President of the Ascension Seton Medical Staff, and I was President of the Texas Society of Anesthesiologists, but today I'm speaking for myself. And ask you to oppose Senate Bill 2207 as it does not address current certification. Certification by a member board of the American Board of Medical Specialties is an achievement that testifies that a physician has satisfied the requirements established by his or her specialty at a particular point in time. As in the case of my specialty, certification has been time limited since 2000, and the certification cycle now is on a 5-year schedule. Why certify and recertify? To demonstrate to one's colleagues, hospital systems, and most importantly to the public, that you're maintaining the standards set by your particular specialty board. Hospital systems usually require current board certification as an important indicator of clinical competence for granting clinical privileges. If a physician chooses not to satisfy requirements for maintaining board certification, or if their certification is revoked for violation of medical ethics or civil statutes, they should not be allowed to claim that they are board certified. And certification status is available on each specialty's website. The TMB has the responsibility to protect the public, and if a physician wrongly claims to be board certified, the TMB should be able to prevent that claim. Senate Bill 2207 does not address current board certification, and because of this, I ask you to oppose it. Thank you.
Thank you. Didn't realize the timer had run out. Thank you for your testimony. Chair recognizes Karen Schotten, National Board of Physicians and Surgeons, testifying for Senate Bill 2207. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank
Thank you. Good evening, good morning, Chairman, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Thank you so much. Karen Schotten, I'm the Associate Director of the National Board of Physicians and Surgeons, which is a nationally recognized physician-led nonprofit which certifies and board certifies over 15,000 physicians nationally, over 1,100 in Texas. We're accepted at over 250 hospitals and health systems nationwide, including 29 in Texas and the VA system. I'm here to urge your strong support for 2207, which passed on bipartisan vote 29-2 out of the Senate. And I respectfully disagree with some of the comments you've just heard. At issue is a current Texas Medical Board rule, which is now requiring physicians to repurchase through a proprietary program known as Maintenance of Certification, or MOC. MOC was created by the American Board of Medical Specialties and involves recurring assessments, ongoing fees, and requirements that often, reported by physicians, have no clinical relevance to their practice. It also contributes to burnout. In terms of scientific data, there is no high-quality evidence that it improves physician performance or patient outcomes. In fact, one of the most important studies looked at 14,000 surgeons and 2 million Medicare patients who found no difference in surgical complications between surgeons who participated in MOC and those who did not. When it comes to revenue, however, the evidence for MOC is clear. ABMS holds $839 million in assets, while MOC costs physicians $9 billion over the course of their career. 2207's fix is very straightforward. It allows all physicians who have earned initial board certification to retain the title, just like every other regulated profession, law, engineering, architecture. No one else has ever been forced in this way to purchase one proprietary program to buy back a credential. And in closing, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Chair recognizes Charlie Sheffield, Vice President, Government Affairs, ABMS, American Board of Medical Specialties, testifying against Senate Bill 2207. Is that correct?
That's correct. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Charlie Sheffield, Vice President of Government Affairs, American Board of Medical Specialties. We certify nearly 1 million physicians across the country, including nearly 70,000 here in Texas. To lay out very plainly what our concerns with the bill, The way that the definition of board certification is laid out in the current version of the bill recognizes only initial certification. It provides no recourse to the Texas Medical Board or any other authorities to take action against a physician who might have had that certificate suspended due to putting patients at risk, due to not complying with other ongoing requirements, committing fraud, having a skills decline over time. There's a lot of reasons a specialty board might take action against an initial certificate. Usually it's later on in the career when we start to identify issues with either that physician's performance, patient outcomes, or behavior. We will take away that certificate from that specialist to make sure that we're protecting patients and we're protecting public trust in that term. What we're looking at in this bill is that if one of our boards takes action against a physician who they do not believe should be seeing patients, there's nothing in this bill that prevents that physician from going out and continuing to advertise to the public in Texas that they are board certified to provide that type of care. We see that as disingenuous to the public. We see it as non-transparent. Chairman Frank, I heard earlier in other bills you were talking about empowering patients with as much information as possible to seek health care, to find qualified health care. We think that patients should be entitled to know the full extent of a physician's certification, including what's happened to their certificate after that initial certification. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions for this panel? Representative Pearson.
Thank you. Dr. Silva, does this rule apply to all physicians, or were there any exempt?
You're talking the TMA,
Yes.
the TMA board. Well, it applies to physicians relative to their advertising or assertion that they are board certified.
But all physicians, no one was exempt or grandfathered or anything into this?
I'm not aware of anyone that would be grandfathered. I think if you're advertising or indicating that you're board certified, that you're mandated to maintain those expectations, including certification from those 3 boards that I mentioned or the 12 others. Now, there are physicians who have not achieved board certification but do have licensure to practice in the state, but they would even themselves have had to do a accredited 1-year program to achieve a license. Again,
Okay.
not board certified.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Shatton, are you aware of any clause like that?
Yeah, I think that's factually incorrect. So actually, the challenge with the TMB rule, and if you go in the Wayback Machine on the internet, 10 years ago, the word current certification was actually not in the rule. It appeared. I don't know why, because I wasn't around involved with Texas regulations back then. The significance of that word, by changing that one word, it required immediately that physicians participate in these MOC programs. But to Representative Pearson's question, ABMS made an arbitrary cutoff at that point and exempted up to 40% of physicians nationally. The older 40% were all grandfathered and exempted from MOC, but still allowed to call themselves board certified, while the rest of the 60% were required. So right now, in Texas, the existing law is letting 2 groups of physicians treat their board certification status differently. So while Dr. Silva may have to do MOC to stay current or not, I don't know what his status is, perhaps a younger doctor out of training is required. So it's not about truth in advertising. It's not about accurately advertising one's credentials, because as we speak, I guarantee there's 30 to 40% of physicians not staying current by the TMB's definition at all. And it's not the TMB's fault. It's due to the fact that this external organization that created maintenance of certification created an arbitrary cutoff that then created an inadvertent result. I agree with everything Dr. Silva said. Board certification and evidence is very, very clear. It is the critical factor, evidence-driven factor that makes that drives clinical medicine and quality in clinical medicine, but it's initial board certification. It is not MOC. It's initial board certification. That study I referenced is one of the foundational studies that shows at that arbitrary point of grandfathering, even though they did it probably for whatever reasons, it gave us a treasure trove of data where we were able to compare physician data sets side by side. And so we know MOC is not a driver of physician quality. And to the point of boards not, the Texas Medical Board not being able to sanction a physician, that came up on the Senate side. It went to legislative committee and they discussed it and they determined that that wasn't the case. The Texas Medical Board would still retain the power to sanction a physician doing something unlawfully. So.
And then my final question for Mr. Sheffield, is there a two-class system of physicians under this program?
Thank you for the question. I'll explain what happened with our non-time limited certificates and time limited. That it is true that when the boards were initially started in 1933, initial certification was the only thing a physician had to complete. By the late 80s and early 90s, a growing body of evidence recognized that skills decline over time and that medicine was advancing so rapidly that one test in time in a physician's career was insufficient to prove to patients and to prove to potential employers and health systems and the public that physician is staying up to date, apprised of medical advancements in their field, and keeping their skills refreshed. That is when the American Board of Medical Specialties created a new rule that all physicians would have to participate in something that's either called continuing certification, continuous certification, maintenance of certification. We represent 24 individual autonomous boards. That's where you get kind of some of these strange numbers about our budget. We don't have that budget. They're adding up all of our individual trade association members' budgets for that number. That's not money that's in our coffers. But we moved to maintenance of certification, recognizing that skills decline over time. Every certified physician in every specialty that comes through any one of our boards is participating in continuous certification. There is no non-time limited certificate. Every specialist in America who comes through the American Board of Medical Specialties or comes through the AOA will have to be participating in some type of program here to make sure that their skills stay up to date. Also, the other part of that maintenance of certification is observing a professional code of conduct, which means you're not going to put your patients at risk. You're going to stay up to date in your field. There's nothing in the definition in the bill in 2207 right now that allows for recognition of a professional code of conduct or a violation of code of conduct. All it says is if you're ever initially certified, you can hold yourself out as being actively board certified to the patients of Texas today, regardless of whatever action the Texas Medical Board or the Specialty Board took against you for whatever reason.
So I was kind of expecting a yes or a no. So you're saying all physicians, there are no exceptions, no one was grandfathered, every physician has to go through this MOC?
Currently, yes. There was a decision made that at the time, these were essentially contracts made with physicians to compel physicians to come back and do something that wasn't part of the deal when they were initially certified, was deemed by the attorneys that we could not go back and make people who received that non-time limited certificate, we couldn't implement more rules onto them. There are individuals who decided to do that voluntarily because they saw the value of that. You've got two studies in front of you today, right now, that shows the study of participation in this certification. I'd encourage you to go on the ABMS website, spend some time on our evidence page, and you'll go through literally dozens of scholarly journals that show improved outcomes, improved adherence to protocols, lower disciplinary actions for physicians who participate in maintenance of certification.
And so what do you say to those physicians who say that they're going through all of this program and it's not beneficial to their practice?
We totally hear that. When this was rolled out, there was essentially another high-stakes exam you had to take every 5 to 10 years. Lots of pressure on a physician. It was a pass-fail test. If you failed it, you would no longer be an anesthesiologist, for example. The time of investment that we heard about earlier from Ms. Shatton is we would say, kind of a bunk study that looked at the time that physicians were preparing to pass that high-stakes exam. We no longer have a high-stakes exam. We have something called longitudinal assessment, which means that we are frequently sending physicians more specialty-specific information, articles, journal entries, simulations. We now have processes that they can give us feedback and say, was this question or was this item relevant to your practice? And then we will continue throughout that throughout the course of a physician's career and their participation, continue to find more relevant information. I'm not a physician. I haven't gone through this process. I would defer to others who have participated to talk about that meaningfulness. There were issues with the rollout. We spent 2 or 3 years on something called the Vision Commission, refining this program, addressing the burnout issues, addressing some of the cost issues, addressing the fact that physicians felt that they were studying for an exam that maybe they needed to pass early in their career, but with a specialized practice in mid-career, late career, probably wasn't as relevant to them. And we're working with physicians, we're working with the specialty societies, we've developed programs. And in fact, the feedback we're getting from physicians now is overwhelmingly positive. And again, that's all available on our website.
Okay, I'll let other members ask questions.
Okay, Chairman Frank.
So is your organization the only one that determines whether or not somebody is part of a specialty or not?
No, sir. We're the American Board of Medical Specialty. There's 24 different specialty boards: anesthesia, cardiology. There's also the American Osteopathic Association. They certify DOs. And there are a number of specialty certification organizations that don't fit within either of those two kind of umbrellas. Some of them are actually laid out in the bill. The Maxillofacial Board. There's some other boards that just don't fit within that umbrella for whatever reason. We recognize them as being fully legitimate. It's just that we didn't see them as separate enough from our own boards that we needed to kind of bring them into our fold. But there are numerous independent certifying boards out there.
Okay. And the $200 a year, does that go to y'all? It doesn't go to the, or does it go to the TMB? It doesn't go to the TMA. It goes to the TMB
So
or
that's,
to the...
that's the initial application. If you're a board that wants to gain TMB certification to be one of these boards, to allow that, it's a $200 initial fee, and I think the renewal fee is $200, I forget, every 2 years or something on that order. Which brings the point, if the fee is problematic, it's not that excessive. If that's the problem, we can potentially work through that to lower that or somehow adjust that.
I don't know. Because my follow-up was going to be, what are they getting for $200? Because it's, I mean, to me, it's somewhat of a, I mean, tax is too strong of a word, but they're getting a service provided theoretically. Sure. What's the service? Is the service just a way to fund an organization, or is it a way, is there actual value being created, or is it one of those that, hey, I'm a monopoly, I can charge $200 when I want?
Yeah, I'm hesitant to speak for the Texas Medical Board, but I would imagine it's their administrative fee to process the application. But again, the TMB would need to be the one to answer that.
I think that would be the question I would, yes.
For the American Board of Anesthesiology, there is a product that's $210 a year. It's an educational product, and if you complete, it's called the MOCA Minute, and they're like 100 over the course of a year. You complete those, then you have to submit your answers. Then that's a key portion of the recertification process. All specialty boards have gone through a several year, now two and a half decades learning process of how to best structure, how to refine, and how to bring value to those of us who are seeking recertification. I was certified in 1977, as I said, so I didn't have an expiration date on my board certificate. But when the American Board of Anesthesiology began this recertification process, I decided that I needed to do it, and then I convinced my partners. And in fact, in the Seton system, to maintain clinical privileges, you have to be currently board certified.
Right, okay. And the bringing value, I guess, is in the eye of the beholder. Some people it may be valuable, some people it may be, hey, all you're doing is keeping me from being able to advertise what skills I have. So thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, Representative Jones.
So, in the medical profession, you guys don't have, we have CLE, you guys have CME, correct? So, am I to understand that in order to be, I mean, don't all physicians have to take CME?
We do.
So what is the ongoing that's what I'm confused about.
May I jump in? Or who would you like to answer that?
Have at it.
Okay, so you're exactly right, and I think what's really important, this is not a this is not a comparison of a physician, MOC or no lifelong learning, right? That's not the comparison. All physicians are required, and 2207 doesn't change anything. All board-certified physicians who have completed residency, sat for the board exam, passed it, are still going to complete lifelong learning in their specialty, whether it's through CME, which is required, and by the way, the statement of professionalism is required by state medical boards. So it's really, we always feel it's an overstep by a certification organization because your TMB that's their job to ensure professionalism. But what has happened with MOC is CME used to be a fully competitive market. So just like an attorney, just like an engineer, you could pick and choose exactly what CME was relevant to you. So if you were family medicine, but you only dealt with child psychiatric issues, you would just direct your learning to those points. With the advent of MOC, that freedom was taken away. And while ABMS might feel that the physicians value their programs, their own Vision Commission study that was referenced here, 90% of physicians in their ABMS's own study found no value in MOC, and that was in 2017. More recent studies, 2017 study of rheumatologists, up to 75% felt MOC was a waste of time beyond what was already achieved from competitive CME that they could pick and choose. There was another study more recently, 2022, the Association of Hematologists and ASCO, I forget what the acronym stands for, close to 82% said MOC they felt like was more about the bottom line of the organization selling them than about making them better physicians. So I think it's really important to remember that all of these physicians are constantly studying, constantly learning. I think our position, we offer continuing certification. So our position is we don't force anyone to take our certification. It's a choice. We're not going to uncertify you and say you can't get a job if you don't choose us. But unfortunately, when MOC entered the game, board certification, which once was a voluntary credential achieved through that exam, has become tied to employment. And what is not being discussed here, and it's very in the weeds, and I apologize because it's like 2 a.m, but the American Board of Medical Specialties also controls the entire national credentialing database that reports out to the world if a physician is board certified. So if they strip a physician of board certification for not performing in their proprietary MOC, even though there's so many other forms of continuing education out there, you effectively can't get a job in the United States of America as a physician.
Hold up, because you on a roll. I need to.
Sorry.
One of you was making faces.
Well, I was hoping to
which-
give a chance to respond. but
Okay, so-
you were picking up the
Yeah,
visual cues.
my mama
But
used to
hopefully
tell me
this-
when I was little, fix your face. So what's your, Rep. Cunningham, your mama probably tell you the same thing. Okay. So what is your response? Because your face was saying, I don't agree
Sure.
with that.
I would just note that CMEs, I don't know how many of you are attorneys, how many of you are physicians, but I think we've all heard stories, or many of you will have had experiences, that not all CLEs are the most legitimate or robust of activities. We've all heard stories about the CME cruises, the hand washing modules, things that really don't contribute to improving professional practice. You can go to seminars, you can go to conferences, have a lunch, get your CME. They're not specialty specific. They are self-driven, which is great. But I think we know that human nature is what it is. We're going to try to find the path of least resistance. What MOC does and why it was implemented is that we saw that this quality of CME out there, there's some really good CME out there and there's some not great CME out there. In fact, our board programs will recognize doing the good CME, the robust, meaningful CME for credit. You don't have to do just our projects. We will recognize other external projects if they're valuable. What we don't do is accept any CME that you submit, especially if it's not specialty specific. That's where we draw the line. That's where we make sure that physicians are meaningfully participating in discipline-specific, ongoing learning activities, not just check-the-box activities.
Okay, so now I see the different sides.
Thank you.
One of the things I would wonder, like I know some people who have masters from, I know him, and I'm trying to figure out how you get that master's.
Yeah, right.
Right, somebody do your work for you, is this the next, so. it's a-
Diploma mills.
Okay, diploma mill. that
And we
sounds
see
okay.
certain certifying organizations as diploma mills.
So I guess my question about this, the MOCs, like what's the definition of, I guess, a national organization that has sufficient, criteria? How do we know who they are?
This is something the profession has been grappling with. Who accredits the accreditor? What is legitimate certification? Ms. Shatton is right. Many years ago, ABMS and AOA were the dominant forces. We are still the dominant force. We're not the only force by any means. What has happened is that the American Medical Association, the Institute for Credentialing Excellence, the state of Colorado, Congress have all adopted new definitions of what legitimate certification is. Part of that definition...
Are they the same definitions
No,
or are they
ma'am.
different?
Part of that definition is in your bill currently. What was done was they struck two important provisions of the definition that's being used throughout the country and in these organizations.
What are the two
The
provisions?
participation in ongoing certification requirements and observance of a professional code of conduct.
So I guess then my last question is this. I mean, I'm a lawyer. I'm fundamentally opposed to standardized tests, so I would never sit for a board certification. That's just me. However, what I think when people think board certification, they think you took a really hard test that everybody had to pass in order for you to have that special board certification next to your name.
I think on that point, we're all in agreement, correct?
So, and this bill would allow a physician to go find an organization to get certified by,
This would
so
allow,
that they could advertise as board certified? Is that what that's, I mean, I just don't know.
not quite. The bill basically says if you're right, and I think everyone would agree that getting your initial board certification is an extremely high bar. You've spent many years in residency. You already have a practice.
Let's fast forward to that. I agree with that.
Sure.
So after the initial one is really hard.
All it
What
means
comes
is
after that?
that the only thing they're recognizing is initial certification. We could have instances where a physician has put a patient in harm's way and take away their certificate from the American Board of Anesthesia. They can then go to alternate boards and pay a fee and get recertified. And then under this law, come back to the state of Texas and start advertising to patients as being an anesthesiologist when the American Board of Anesthesia has stripped their certificate for patient harm. And they can go pay a fee to folks like the National Board of Physicians and Surgeons who do not revoke certificates for any reason and continue to hold themselves out as board certified to patients in Texas.
May I respond to that? Because that's factually incorrect about my organization.
Yes, ma'am, I want to hear both sides so I can make an informed
Yes, we
decision.
absolutely do remove certifications. Thank you.
For what reasons?
For varied reasons. So we monitor state board licensure. We require active and absolutely unrestricted board licensure. We just removed someone's certification last month. It was a fraudulent licensure question. And certainly when there are clinical questions that come to our judgment, our physician board will review those cases.
Thank you.
Representative Cunningham.
Your name again? Miss
Karen Shatton.
Shatton.
Yes,
Shatton.
thank you.
You gave me this here, right? Real quickly, what am I supposed to be looking at? What is that? What does this tell me?
So that is a graph from 2022 of all the publicly available data of the revenue of the top 5 ABMS member boards.
Okay.
And there's the revenue from initial certification in one side and their MOC revenue in the other. And you'll see in most cases, MOC is more than double the initial revenues now. And they can't really run their programs and budgets without MOC. And
So
yet
that
these
was,
programs,
and that was the question I was going to ask then. So what is the cost of an MOC?
So I would defer to the
I'm
organization
gonna
that
defer
sells
to you,
it,
Charlie.
but it varies.
Yeah, if you could help me out with that. What's the cost of an MOC?
Anesthesiology, $200 a year.
I heard 200, and I heard 200 from Dr. Zeke, and
There are 24 individual member boards. I can't give you a single number because they're all individual. They all set their own prices. Those are costs that are sustaining the program. We are all nonprofits.
Okay.
We are all of our finances are online. We're audited by external CPAs, and we are recognized nonprofits.
I think mine's around 320, 330 a year.
okay.
There are the physicians who have double, triple, quadruple certifications, and so those fees can run into the thousands. ABMS does penalize physicians with late fees and penalties, as a comparison. So our physicians, because of the TMB rule, this is why this bill is so important to us, cannot call themselves board certified in Texas, even though they have passed an initial board certification, and they continue to continually certify with our organization through, ironically, the same high rigor CME that ABMS counts as MOC points. It's sort of a little known fact. So the challenge is, I've lost my train of thought, I'm sorry, it's 2 a.m. I'm not sure if I answered your question, but yeah, I apologize.
Yeah, it was a
It's
cost. It was a cost, but then just one other question, because you said you guys basically corrected somebody with certification, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't the Texas Medical Board have something to do with that too, or am I losing something here?
The Texas Medical Board can take action against a license.
Okay.
We take actions against a certificate.
Got it.
Both of our organizations require that you have an unrestricted license to have a certificate. We will take action against a certificate holder before the state medical board potentially takes action, because we want to make sure people trust anesthesia. We want to make sure people trust cardiologists. Other organizations will only terminate a certificate after the state medical board has taken action. We're one of the few organizations who will actually get in front of the state disciplinary action in rare cases. Sometimes the state medical boards don't move with enough speed. Sometimes we have information that the state medical boards may not have. We are getting inputs around data, quality, and professional behavior from different inputs. The state medical board is a complaint-driven process. We are a review-driven process. If we start to see a physician who can't complete their skills assessments, if they're not answering the tests correctly anymore, if they can't pass these tests, if they're not participating in certification, we will come and try to work with that person, but ultimately, we might take that certificate away, even though they're not really in a disciplinary violation with the state medical board.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Sheriff. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Representative Jones.
It isn't free to like maintain whatever organization credentials, makes you board certified. There's got to be people there. There's got to be some kind of that costs money to do. So are you, Ms. Shatton, suggesting that it's unreasonable to charge a fee to maintain a respected, credible organization that helps keep your board certification?
Not at all. So we charge a fee. Our fee is $94.50 per year, so it's $189 for every 2 years. But we do not charge extra for multiple certifications. We want it to be as reasonable for physicians as possible. We call ourselves a true nonprofit. We are break even. Our goal is not to make money. Our goal is to keep physicians practicing clinically outstanding medicine by studying what they need to be studying.
Do you have one of these for your organization?
I don't, but I could probably tell you off the top of my head.
I want
Okay.
one of these.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay, if
yeah.
you could just get me one for you guys.
Will do.
All right,
Will
thank
do.
you.
Yep, thank you.
Representative Collier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So are you saying that physicians who are certified under NBPAS are not eligible to hold themselves out as certified under the current TMB rules?
That's correct. And the real harm is, I'll give you an example from just this month. A nationally renowned neurologist, NBPAS certified neurologist and movement disorder specialist from Austin, closed her practice. She moved to Oklahoma, where the Oklahoma Medical Board just updated its rule so that our physicians could advertise as board certified, and she moved her practice to Oklahoma. And I'm sure if I open the floodgates.
I'm sorry, you said that was correct, so that's all I need
Yes.
to know. All right, so then my next thing is, for the current 24 specialties, do physicians, when they pay their fee, do they certify or affirm that they have, I don't know, done so much continuing medical education?
They don't, they do affirm, but we are constantly, they're submitting and we are auditing and reviewing that. It's not a self-attestation like other organizations where you check a box and say, I did this. We are constantly reviewing, we're checking for completions, we're sharing data with other organizations to make sure they're completed. But it's not just, you don't self-attest that you did this. We are making sure you're completing it. That is the value of MOC.
But Representative Collier, and this is to Representative Jones' question. So we're thinking about sort of two pathways. So one is just pure licensure in the state of Texas. We just have to have a license to practice. So we have to achieve certain CME. I think it's 42 or 48 hours every 2 years just to keep our license. What they're talking about is additional MOC, which may overlap, but it's more specialty specific.
I get that because I'm a lawyer and we do the same thing.
Same thing with the
All
bar,
right.
exactly.
Well, what I want to know is, in terms of who would be eligible, like, under this bill would not allow the 24 entities. If a physician is certified under one of those, they would not be eligible to hold themselves out as certified? Is that what this bill does?
Any ABMS diplomate today can hold themselves out as board certified. Under this definition, they would continue to hold themselves as board certified. Our issue is that our boards might take action and not want these people to be certified anymore for any number of reasons. Under this bill, they can go out and pay a fee to someone else, have them call them board certified or not, and just continue to advertise as being board certified. What the bill does with the definition, it says if you're ever initially certified, you can call yourself board certified, full stop. It doesn't say if you ever had your certificate taken away for any reason, you can't do that anymore. Even if the state medical board took away your license to practice, under this bill, you could still go out and say you are a board certified anesthesiologist. You don't have to say you're practicing, but you can say you're a board certified anesthesiologist, which matters when you're running a med spa that's doing questionable treatments, when you're advertising, when you are performing as an expert witness in court proceedings or peer review of cases before the Texas Medical Board. Advertising is a lot more than just what you're putting in a commercial to patients.
Well, hang on. I just want to make sure that that's true because I can't imagine that the bill author would intend to allow someone to hold themselves out for something that they are not.
I don't believe that the bill author did intend to do this. I think this was an unintended consequence in the way the language is written. The language that you see around board certification is a corruption of a more national standard definition. It's removing the definition of board certification that was adopted on the Senate side removes two key provisions from a larger common definition that's being adopted throughout the country and at different organizations now. They took out two key provisions. And I don't know why the sponsor chose to do this. I don't know if that sponsor was aware that this was a corruption of a more standard nationwide model. But the standard definition that we see echoes of in this bill also goes so far as to say you have to be completing any ongoing requirements required by your initially certifying board. You can't just go to another board that's piggybacking off of your initial certification and rubber stamping CME. And you have to be observing some type of professional code of conduct. If we wanted to reinsert those two provisions into this definition, ABMS would change its position to be supportive of the bill. What we are objecting to is the corruption of the term board certification in that definition. But it's not going to change whether or not ABMS certificates can hold themselves out as being board certified. Our concern is that we have people who we don't believe are as qualified who'd be able to continue to hold themselves out as being equally qualified as other providers.
But NBPAS is a board certifying.
NBPAS offers no initial certification. They simply look at ABMS certification, allows a physician to off-ramp from all the ongoing requirements. NBPAS offered no psychometrically valid initial assessment themselves. They only recognize our initial certificate and then piggyback off of that by requiring physicians to submit basic CME rather than participate in their MOC.
May I respond to that?
Quickly.
Yes, correct. We don't offer initial board certification because my counterpart here and his organization does a fine job with initial board certification. We're happy to call that out. They do a great job. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. Our 20 physician founders founded us only in 2015 because of all the incredible, overwhelming opposition, pain, burnout, and exit from medicine on the part of physicians, which, while it's multifactorial, MOC plays a significant role. We
So hang
simply
on.
want competition and choice.
Okay, is this a vendor bill? I don't like vendor bills. I don't know if this sounds like a vendor, like, you want in? I don't know.
Senator Hall, I know that his personal physician, I believe, is board certified with us, and his physician was frustrated, is my understanding, that he couldn't call himself board certified, and that's when he reached out to us for more information. So that's, I don't know the exact origins, but that's when they reached out to us.
Got it, thanks.
Chairman Frank.
All right. Let me see if I've got this right. TMB only works right now with the American Board of Specialties, right? They're the ones who call that out, essentially. I mean,
That and the American
Texas Medical
Osteopathic.
Board says if you're going to be certified, you have to go through this national organization. Is that right?
If you're going to advertise or indicate that you're board certified, it has to be through the American Board of Medical Specialties, the American Osteopathic Association.
Right, yeah.
And then maxillofacial surgery.
Right, yeah,
correct.
but TMB controls that right now.
That is a TMB rule,
Right,
correct.
yeah, by TMB rule, they control that. Is there any, and the $200 goes to the American Board of Specialties?
There's a licensing fee that goes to the Texas Medical Board that sustains their budget.
That's
we also,
okay, because that's what I was, I
That-
knew,
okay.
I knew,
There's a
I knew you
licensing
were gonna
fee.
say that. I was gonna say, how much of the money then goes from y'all to them?
we collect nothing from the state licensing fee to the Texas Medical Board. We charge physicians a sustaining fee for the maintenance of certification, separate from CME, separate from licensure. It'd be like, to oversimplify it, it'd be like paying the Red Cross for your CPR class. You're paying for that product, you're paying for the assessment. Those fees go to fund the oral assessors, they go to fund the innovations in the programs.
The $200 that we were talking about, who does that go to? Texas Medical Board or to
Yes,
y'all?
if you're a physician-based certifying organization, but not one of the three I just mentioned, you can go to the TMB and pay a $200 application fee to be recognized to enable that for your members.
Okay, but I can see what, I guess the TMB and Nicole, or I'm sorry, Representative Collier, to your point, I think it is in a way a vendor bill, but it's to open it up to a second vendor, I think. Right now, it's a monopoly vendor, which is what the TMB is choosing to do, right? And there is some money that goes back and forth between TMB. The $200, if I'm getting it right, the $200 is split somehow between the national group and the Texas Medical Board. That's
No, it's entirely separate. So medical licensure is completely separate from board certification.
Okay.
So their organization has their budget, our organization has our budget. And yeah, so they're entirely separate.
Okay.
I would just like to add that it is our position that ABMS and AOA, that it is because there's a growth of legitimate certifying organizations in America, that the policies that recognize only ABMS and AOA are going to be quickly obsolete. And they shouldn't be recognizing winners and losers specifically. That is why organizations, like the AMA and ICE and Congress and the state of Colorado have adopted a definition that moves away from just recognizing AOA or ABMS and says, these are the components of a legitimate certification program.
Okay.
I would question why we are trying to take elements out of that definition.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
All right, members, okay. Thank you for your testimony. Chair calls Dr. Hussein Bafali, Dr. Sandra Payton, okay, we have Dr. Sandra Payton, National Board of Physicians and Surgeons and self for Senate Bill 2207. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, proceed.
Thank you and good morning. My name is Dr. Sandra Payton. I've been practicing family medicine in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for the last 28 years, and I'm here to support the SB 2207. Like many physicians in Texas, I completed my board certification, I've passed rigorous exams, and I stay current in my specialty every year. Yet, because I chose not to participate in the expensive, time-consuming maintenance of certification program, I was told I could no longer advertise as board certified. This rule has put my hospital privileges at risk and forced me to consider paying thousands of dollars, not because I wasn't qualified and not because I wasn't learning, but simply to buy back a credential I had already earned. The MOC process isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. I work in a highly specialized field, and much of what's required in MOC does not reflect the care I provide every day. Doctors like me are already required to complete continuing medical education. We have to maintain our hospital privileges, we undergo peer review, and we participate in national quality registries and meet payer credentialing requirements. We are held accountable in multiple ways. The National Board of Physicians and Surgeons offers a valid, recognized alternative. It is accepted by the Joint Commission, the National Committee of Quality Assurance, the Utilization Review Accreditation, and DNV. Over 250 hospitals nationwide recognize it, including 29 here in the state of Texas, as well as the Veterans Health Administration. National Board of Physicians and Surgeons requires evidence-based CME every 2 years and provides a clinically meaningful pathway to stay current. SB 2207 does not lower standard, it preserves high-quality certification while giving physicians a choice in how we maintain our credentials. Most importantly, it helps keep experienced doctors practicing in Texas, especially in rural and undeserved communities
Dr.
where
Payton.
patient access is already at risk.
Thank you for your testimony. Members, any questions for Dr. Payton? Representative Jones.
So if this bill got passed, you would pay $89, how often, and what do you have to do to be able to advertise as board certified?
With the National Board of Physicians and Surgeons, it's $195 every 2 years. And I have to be able to do 150 CME credits per year, whereas the Texas Medical Board only requires 150 CMEs every 3 years. I can promise you, though, as of today, between January and now, I've done 33 credits. Over the last 2 years, I have 293 credits, and those are the ones that I just checked.
So every 2 years, you pay
195.
$195, and then you take,
I have to do the CMEs, 150 credits every 2 years.
and this is what this bill would require.
Correct.
And who do you have to take the credits from?
The CME credits, you have to be AMA certified credits. It can't just be anybody, it has to be AMA certified.
Thank you.
Okay, members? All right, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else wish to testify on, for, or against Senate Bill 2207? Not, Chair recognizes Representative Pearson to close.
Members, these mandates are unproven, unaffordable, and unfair. Let's keep our physicians in Texas. I close.
Thank you. If there's no objection, Senate Bill 2207 will be left pending. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senate Bill 2207 is left